One. Did I do that right? Welcome, everyone to the Sigma Show, episode 85. It is me, Sigma. We are back from an extended break thanks to the holidays and mostly the holidays. I was just trying to take a break. But before I let you know who's joining me this week, real quick, we'll go over what our topics shall be. Today we're talking movies. We have a new trailer for the Last of Us TV series, a new trailer for the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and Quentin Tarantino has decried that Marvel movies have basically killed the movie star and have otherwise kind of crippled the movie industry, which a lot of other notable directors have mentioned in the past. So it makes you wonder, is there some truth to it? So we'll talk about all these things. But here to talk with me about those things today, Rachel Kaiser,
Hi, everyone.
Rexicon Jesse,
Hey, good morning.
and Yokina Cat.
Hey y'all.
Welcome back, everybody. So nice to have you here. It's always a pleasure to talk games or nerd culture, etc. with all you guys. And just to prove that I'm not making that up, that I mean that, we're going to talk about what we've been playing and watching. So does anybody want to share first? Like who has like a bunch of stuff that they've been like playing and want to really dig into?
I can go first.
Yeah, by all means.
Okay. Yeah, I've been playing the Callisto Protocol.
Okay.
Ooh,
And
Very interested in that.
I'll probably finish a review shortly. Everybody else at GamesBeat was like, "We're not into horror games." Rachel, you like horror games, right? And I'm like, "I'm not scared by horror games, sure." And yeah, so I got Callisto Protocol, and I've been playing it, trying to find the differences between it and Dead Space. There aren't that many. Although I'm kind of enjoying the combat system, even though I wish there were more options to not do combat.
So it's kind of combat heavy.
It's a little combat heavy, which it's not really how I like my horror games, but I understand where it's coming from. I do like the atmosphere though. I love space horror. My favorite horror game is Alien Isolation. So,
Okay.
yeah. So the vibe really works for me, which is helpful.
Nice.
And
like I recently played through all the Dead Space games on stream with Marty because I'd never played any of them because like you, I'm just not really a fan of horror games. Not that I'm afraid of them, as some folks who saw the Alien Isolation.
Oh no, I
tried to
just
do.
to clarify, I love horror games. It's just that everyone else at GamesBeat was maybe a little bit like scared.
Oh, like they're actually afraid.
Yeah, that's why they wanted me to play it.
Right, that makes sense.
You're
Like
here
I've
first.
never gotten down with the mechanics of limiting the character and making everything else like that's the way they try to build tension in a lot of horror games I find is by making you much weaker and have less options and ability to deal with whatever the threats are versus just making a threat that actually scares you or a situation that scares you. But Dead Space was fun, like just top to bottom as a video game. It was pretty fun. So Callisto Protocol trying to ape that model, I was interested in. But reviews have been all over the place so far. Like you said, so you're not really that down on it so far since you.
No, I like I like a lot of the Dead Space elements. I mean, there's a part of me that's like, you could maybe try to be a little bit different, try to forge your own identity. But I mean, and I haven't finished it so far, so I want to try and do that before I, finish the review. But I like the enemy design. It's a little bit different from the necromorphs, and I like that there are at least a little bit of stealth option, a little bit of stealth available, should you so choose. And how do I put this? It's not that I have a problem with any of like that kind of the Dead Space elements or all that. It does have some performance issues, which I'm not keen on, and I don't know, for a series that started with the main character not talking, he had a lot more visual character than the main character does of Callisto Protocol.
Okay. So you're saying this new guy is way more generic than
Pretty much.
even
It's got a great opening.
voiceless Isaac Clarke.
Yeah, it's got a great opening story hook. Well, I think part of it is that Isaac just looks so cool, whereas the main character.
Yeah, that ribcage suit is dope.
Exactly. And meanwhile, Jacob just looks like he's wearing a prisoner jumpsuit. So.
Fair.
I mean, not the entire game, but it's like it's very hard to like look at him and even like retain a visual memory of him for the most part when you're not actively
That's
playing
fair.
the game.
Yeah, ribcages leave an impression on you.
This is true. Yes.
Supposed to leave an impression in you, but
King Dead 42 in chat says, quoting Rachel says, "How's the combat? I wish there were more options to not do it."
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty telling, I guess. But I don't know. Rachel seems like she's enjoying it so far. And like I said, like reviews have been very mixed. Like there's some very high ones and some very low ones. So like those more than anything else are the kind of games where like you probably should just get your hands on it yourself if you're interested.
Yeah, I kind of like to say sort of if you like Dead Space, then this is probably going to be right up your alley.
Good question. If I don't like Dead Space, is it worth going for?
Probably not.
All right,
But
well,
I haven't finished the review yet, so
Okay.
I need to finish the game and then
Okay.
we'll do the review and then we'll see.
I'll wait to read it.
Lampy in chat asking, "What are you playing it on, Rachel?"
Xbox Series X. And there were some performance issues. They did patch it, I think yesterday, which helped a little bit.
Okay, that's good. It's nice when companies recognize that their game has problems and then ask to patch it.
Yeah, it seemed like something that was pretty that was pretty easily fixed. It's not so bad now. The problem was that when I first started playing, which was, to be fair, was before the game was even released, was I mean, there were occasions when I would swing like the camera around to like attack an enemy behind me or something, and the camera would just be like 3 seconds behind me as I'm trying to turn. Like my fingers would be inputting the command to turn, and the camera would be like, then like at least like so slowly, and I was like, why are you doing this to me? Reaction
no
time is kind of
options to change
important
that?
here.
Like no options to change that?
Well, it was that was the performance issue.
Oh, okay.
So that was the thing they
just trying
patched.
to render. Okay, gotcha. Well, all right. Anything else that you've been playing or watching?
Watching, not really. I've mostly just been watching some old movies. Watched one of the Godzilla movies last night just for fun.
But which one?
Yeah, which of the Godzilla?
King of the Monsters.
Have you seen that Godzilla anime yet, though? I have to ask everybody.
I have not. My husband has.
Oh, Singular. If you haven't seen Singular Point,
He's a
Yeah, I do wanna check
huge
that out.
anime. He's a huge kaiju fan, so he got me into all that. But
Nice.
I did finish playing Pentiment, which I really loved. So that was but murder mystery story. Come on, I don't need to explain to
that's
you
like
why
right
that's
up
up my
your alley.
alley.
Oh man.
We've known each other for 2 years now. You know this about me.
Okay, cool. Like how long is Pentiment? Because I am curious about it, but like
No, it's
you know,
not. It's not
time.
that long. It's probably, I would say, typical adventure game length. It's probably like maybe around. I think I spent like 20 hours. Not 20. No,
Well, that's much longer than I was
no,
thinking.
like 15 hours. I would say.
15?
Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of lengthy.
Hang on.
For my taste, for because it's mostly like reading and choice making, right? Like that's the gameplay
Indeed.
in there.
Let me check my stats. Hold on.
Cool. Well, thank you for telling me about another game I may have to get for my partner. She also loves mysteries.
Oh yes, always. Yeah, like maybe like probably around, I think I spent like around like 13, 14 hours in it, so it's probably around that length if you're just doing
Okay.
a straight playthrough, or you're not going back and like doing just to see like the other options, because it's a full on it's got
Okay.
full on RPG style like choices to like set you up as a character. It's like a weird
Okay.
hybrid of adventure game and RPG.
That's cool. That sounds more interesting than what I was thinking it was, which was just a well-told choose your own adventure.
Kind of, but I'm gonna hype it up because I love a mystery.
Sure, sure.
So it's definitely not everyone's cup of tea, but like, well, for example, like one thing that I did have a problem with is that in the game, it'll like do this thing where it looks like an old school like scriptorium. The textbooks looks like old school like inking, where like the text sort of like is like sort of carved into the text box in the way it would have been written in like with an ink and a quill.
Mhm.
And every now and then a letter will be like put in accidentally, and then in the way that people would in when they were writing books out by hand, the letter will be sort of blotted out and then the correct letter will be put in. which is cute the first like 3 or 4 times that happens. But when it's happening like every 5 seconds during the scene, and it's like, okay, I get it, you're going for a gimmick here. Stop. We're in the middle of a serious murder investigation here. Enough whimsy.
They can't. They're contractually obligated to add as much whimsy as humanly possible.
Apparently, but yeah, and I also like mysteries that are told in not conventional settings, if you will, like settings you don't expect. And so a 16th century, I think it was 16th or 15th century. I need to remember these things. In a 16th century Bavarian monastery. So
that's new.
That's not something. That's not a mystery I read very often.
Good stuff. Yeah, I've been hearing good things about it. So I may start it up.
So, yeah.
Who knows if I'll finish it.
So good games all right. I mean, it's on Game Pass, so.
Yeah, King just mentioned that they played a bit on Game Pass, but wish there was more gameplay in it.
Yeah, that's sort of like a typical adventure game complaint that I hear. So if you're not really into the adventure game, like reading and all that, then yeah, it probably won't be for you.
That's fair. So okay, does that wrap things up for you, Rachel?
It does, yes.
Okay. Anybody else want to go first? I mean, go next.
You have the cool hat, so I say you go next.
Well, thank you. Nothing much on my end. I have been just really busy with work, so I just try to get a little bit of gaming in here or there. I've been really heavy on Tekken. I have been playing a lot of Tekken. I have crossed over into, as I like to call, like the big leagues. I made 20 Dan on Tekken, so in ranked.
Oh dang!
So now
how many Dans are there?
There's 34. So
yeah, it's up there.
So I am 14 ranks away from. So there's Tekken God Prime, and then True Tekken God. Those are like the top 3 ranks. So I'm 14 away from Tekken God.
Dang.
So it's rough. I'm in the trenches now, but I'm really enjoying it, and I'm hoping to sign up for some tournaments over the next couple weeks. Just some local like the PlayStation. I'm not sure if they have it on Xbox, but for like PlayStation, they're always putting out those weekly like tournaments. So I think I'm gonna start signing up for those more and just trying to get like my feet wet in the tournament realm of Tekken, because I tend to stay away from that. So been playing a little.
It can be rough.
Yeah, I'm I did one, and especially with my like internet connection is so important, because I was doing so well. I was 3 matches in, 3 wins, and my internet disconnected. And so when I logged back in, they let me do my match, but then that kind of just like threw off my mojo and I lost. So like, yeah, it is a little rough. But I'm really enjoying it. I've never invested so much. Well, I take that back. I've invested a lot of time in Final Fantasy X, but I don't think I've invested so much in learning a game, if that makes any sense. It's like I'm about to like buy. There's like an option you can. I don't know why we have to buy it. It should just be included in the game. But like the frame data, like for Tekken.
Oh, for like the training mode.
Yeah, like I'm about to buy that, and I'm like, really? I understand what that means now. Like, so I guess I'm just really invested in Tekken, and then of course Apex Legends is the staple. I'm Gold 3 now, which is the closest I've ever been to any Platinum Diamond in Apex Legends. So I think these are my 2 staple games. And then I just, for the 5th millionth time, I just restarted Final Fantasy X. So I want to
Like, what brought that on? Another playthrough of Final Fantasy X.
It's just my favorite game, and I have because I have it on my PS Vita. So I've beaten it like 4 or 5 times on my Vita already. So I have like 4 different saved files, but I'm trying to complete my Sphere Grid. So I'm probably just gonna. I mean, I started another game, a saved game, but I might just play off the last one, because I just want to complete my Sphere Grid. That's literally all I want to do. So that's just a lot of battling. So that's pretty much it for like games. Reading, I am now in book 2 of Godfather. I haven't really been able to read it as fast. Like, I got this like a month ago, and I'm finally on book 2, which is about halfway through the book. Um, I love the book. It's a lot more obviously detailed in the movie, but I understand why the movie was as long as it was. Um, I there's some things about the characters that I wish they would have, I guess, conveyed them or shown them differently in the movie than they do in the book. Because Kay Adams, which is Michael's, girlfriend, future, wife, she's portrayed in the book like they don't really think highly of her, like in the book and like in the
That's
beginning.
something that didn't come across in the movie.
No, like in the movie, Michael's always the one that does right, XYZ. And in the movie, they portray Michael as they never wanted him to like be in the family business, or his dad never wanted him to be in the family business. But in the book, he was the only one that he thought should run the family business. Like, I know, because Rachel, we talked about this before, how we were going to talk about the sidebar, right? So yeah, like the way they portray Sonny, and especially the way they portray Fredo, like they basically made him seem. You would have to read it. That's a totally different conversation for another day. You can just dive into it, but I wish I would have stuck a little closer to how the book portrays them. Vice, it makes sense on screen the way they portrayed them, but I wish they kind of would have stuck closer to how they are actually portrayed in the book.
Like I'm guessing because I don't remember The Godfather very clearly. I've watched all 3 movies in a marathon one time.
Wow.
And that's the only time I've ever watched any of The Godfathers. But I'm assuming the books have much more nuanced takes on these characters, and the movies they're kind of more two-dimensional in a way, but just to, like, get it across to an audience.
For example, like Sonny, for example, the brother, the hot-headed brother, Sonny, right? In the movie, it gives the impression that the Godfather always thought that it was going to be Sonny who ran the business, but in the book, it talks about how the Godfather thought he was too hot-headed. He made poor decision making. Like he never wanted Sonny, or he never thought that he was a good person to become the new Godfather. Like the Godfather always thought that it was going to be Michael. But in the movie, it portrays, like in the scene in the movie, he talks like, "I never wanted this for you." Well, in the book, it says that you thought he was the only one that could do it.
Yeah, it's a pretty big 180.
Yeah. So,
to be fair, in the movie, Vito was also really like not. He had a feeling that if Sonny was running things would probably get bad. He was aware that Sonny was not the ideal candidate.
Yeah, he did, and he does say that in the scene where he was like, "Sonny was a bad Don, may he rest in peace." But it is a really good book. I am enjoying it. It's a lot more detailed, and a lot more raunchy than I thought it was going to be. The book, yeah, it's extremely raunchy. So, anywho, and then I'm also reading Komi Can't Communicate, the manga. Yeah, it's really, really good. I know I had talked about, I think it was probably maybe 2 or 3 podcast episodes like ago. I told you I was reading it, but I stopped it. But it's a really good manga about like social anxiety. The main character, she is this beautiful rich girl that really keeps to herself at school, and everyone thinks she's like stuck up. It's actually she has social anxiety, which keeps her from speaking to people, and that's why she doesn't talk to people. People think it's because she's stuck up. She's like, no, she just clams up and has a heart attack every time someone walks up to her and wants to talk to her. So it's basically, and then that standard blueprint for a lot of stories about the loser guy or the super dorky dude who befriends the pretty person. Like he basically starts helping her become more social with people. It's a really good manga. I like it.
Nice. It sounds cute.
Yeah, and it even talks about, like, on the cover on the inside, it talks about how, like, hey, this is a manga about like social anxiety and XYZ. So it's actually like bringing awareness if you really think about it. Like it's a really good little manga. But other than that, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm just talking a million miles a minute. Sorry.
Oh, that's exactly what this part is for. You don't need to apologize.
Watching I haven't really been watching anything. I've been watching some old movies, kind of like what Rachel. The other day I watched Fatal Attraction with Michael Douglas and Glenn Close. That's one of my favorite movies.
That's a good movie,
but
I hate that movie.
I love it so much. That's like one of my favorite movies. And I've been watching that, and then I've been watching Key and Peele is on now on Amazon Prime Video. So I binge watched the first 2 seasons of Key and Peele yesterday. I basically just did a whole bunch of spring cleaning in the winter in my bedroom. So I just binge watched that, and then I know it's the recap slash trailer for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania came out. So they posted it, I think it was Friday. So I'm really, honestly, I have not been excited for a Marvel film since No Way Home. So I'm really excited about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So
Yeah, the trailer looks really good.
it does. So, but other
It's
than
gonna be
that,
part of
no.
our discussion later, probably.
So, yeah, but other than that, no, just quiet here on the home front.
Nice. Thank you for sharing. Jesse, did you want to go next or?
Sure. I mean, of course, I've been playing Dead by Daylight because that's what I do with my
Yeah,
time.
of course.
But
That's a given.
someone bought me the Night DLC, and it is pretty fun to play as a as a giant man stomping around in armor, swinging a big sword at people. It is really fun. We played Fall Guys the other night. That game is still such a delight. I really hate how they changed the monetization in that game, and
What did they do?
your in-game currency is basically useless.
It's all like in-game purchases now. Like it's annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a whole bunch of crowns, which was the premium currency that you could that you got from the old one, and they turned that into kudos, which is the in-game currency. And then they have a different in-game currency, Showbucks, for where you can actually get everything. So for the amount of crowns I had that I didn't spend, I have like almost 300,000 kudos, and
It's a lot.
they're worth nothing. Like all of the things you could buy with kudos are just like, here's a backpack, here's a pair of shoes, and you can't couple that with another thing. Like that's your whole lower half outfit. So like there's nothing to spend them on. It's useless. And all their
Oh wow.
and then they have like a season pass things like 100 long. It's like I don't got time for that. So it's paywalled pretty hard. The game itself still a lot of fun.
Is that like that's brand new? Because I know they just had like a new season drop or whatever. Like, is that
When
did that come with this?
so no, the season 1 of free to play. So
Oh, that's when this happened.
that's because Mediatonic got bought by Epic,
Right.
and then when it went free to play, that's when all this transfer happened.
Okay. Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, it's pretty lame, but game is still fun. Like
The game's
at least that's
And
good.
you can still play it for free. Like it was a paid thing before.
Yeah.
You can play the actual game for free, but the fun costumes, I guess, is what they're making you pay for. which
Mhm.
I'm of two minds about that because if it had started free, then
Right.
like that's a better case to be like, all right, well, all the cosmetics or whatever is how they monetize it. Therefore,
Right.
that's their model, right? Like if you want to play the game, but you want this cool Sailor Moon outfit or whatever, that you gotta put up some money. But like the fact that you did have to pay for it at a point, and then now that it's free to play, they've switched to that model. Especially for someone like you who was playing it as it was, like that feels
Right.
kind of like a betrayal.
It kind of does. Like it's just it's not good.
I think it's
I've-
one of those. Oh, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
Jess. I didn't mean to.
No, go
It's
ahead.
one of those things where it's like, if it's not broke, don't fix it, kind of thing. And that I guess because I haven't played when the new season came out, I played it a little bit, but it just gave the like Jesse said, the overall game is still fun, but it just has a different feel to it now, if that makes any sense. Like now that they switched it up, but like I don't have time for a battle pass. I just want to play and randomly fall into a big pink cloud of whatever, you know. So, but anyway, sorry.
Yeah, the good news that's still there. I played some Genesis games on my stream this last week because I have the Mega Collection on Steam,
Okay.
and like I don't know, there were a few of them I found interesting. There's one called Fatal Labyrinth. Did you know that there was a roguelike on the Genesis?
No.
They had a legit roguelike on the Genesis called Fatal Labyrinth, and it's in that collection, and I got to play it for a few hours. It's
Like
kind
all the same hallmarks, like
Yeah.
grid-based nodes and all that jazz.
yeah, it's like randomly designed rooms, randomly placed enemies. You even have like a color-coded system of magic, which appears to be every time a new game starts, you don't know what each color means. So like I got something that was like, here's the brown potion. And it's like, oh, okay. what does it do? It's a bunch of question marks, and you have to drink the brown potion before you find out what it does. Whether it's like, and there can be curses. Like there's ones that's like, that's the blind potion, and then for a set amount of turns, you can only see like 2 squares in front of you. And like
that's actually really interesting.
Yeah, and so it was cool ideas, but like very much limited by what the Genesis could do. And so like it's the same like graphical layouts. Like here's brick, that's wall, brick. Like there's no real change up at anything. Most of the enemies are about the same. Maybe a few like completely recolors to make you realize, oh, this one might be different. Like, so I played for a few hours, was like, got my fill. Probably it's not going to be a Hades or like a Rad or something where it's like, oh, I can really mix this up. But it was cool to see something that old in that genre, because that's something I haven't explored.
Well, I mean, the genre goes back a pretty long time, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I always... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, because Rogue is from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, but I didn't know that it seemed like such a niche. I didn't know it got into consoles that early. Or at least one.
Yeah, like that's the main thing, right? It's like I can't think of many console games that had that sort of gameplay. Like it seemed like it was more of a RP, like a not RPG, but like a Western PC thing,
like a text adventure kind of thing, maybe.
Yeah. I think their console tried that a few times with mixed results.
But yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Not really. So I've been watching some some sort of silly home improvement shows. Because
hold on, like shows about home improvement or the actual show?
No, about home improvement.
Okay.
About like
HGTV or Tim Allen?
Yeah.
Right.
Or it's like, well, we have a closet. What should we do with it? It's like, oh, that's it. It was interesting to me before, but now it's like more interesting. Be like, but I have a closet. I could do whatever the F I want to it.
We've reached the age of like, no, I really think they should have chosen that other backsplash. I don't think that clashes to me.
No, for real.
Like, I don't love
it's
I don't like it.
legitimately interesting watching people make decisions about like how.
No, we've reached that point of our lives. Like, no, I don't like the color of that door. Okay.
And it was like we were over a friend's house yesterday, and we were talking to them. They had just like sold their house and bought a new house, and they were talking about some of the things that they had done where they were like, this is what we wanted out of a house. It was cool. And they were like, and then we had to carpet over the floor because no one would buy it like that. And it's like, oh, that hurts. Like that was such a cool idea. Like the stuff that they do like to make it your home is really neat. But then other people not always into that.
My mom's a real estate agent, and she's a real estate agent in 3 states. And we were watching Lord of the Rings last night or the night before. And I told her, I was like, Mom, I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. So I was like, Mom, I want to build a house that's like a Hobbit house, but I want it to be like for full size, like adults, like humans. And my mom's like, absolutely not. She's like, the resale value on that thing would be absolutely horrible. Like the big wide circle door and just the way that like the architecture is like on the inside. I love it. I think it's cute. I was like, I could get like 2 acres of land and just put the resale value on that would not be good, sweetheart. Like, no one's going to want to buy a Hobbit house. So it's like, I was like, I guess you're right.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna go again. I'm not a real estate agent, but I'm gonna go completely against that and say, A, totally do it if you can, because that's awesome. B, it's your house, so if you enjoy it and you want to live there, make it the way you want to. C, who cares about the resale value? You turn that shit into a B&B for super nerds, and it will be booked.
An Airbnb, yeah. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. But I just love the architecture of, because I think like the set that they built, I think people can like tour it because it's in New Zealand, right? So
the Shire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Shire. That's something on my bucket list that I want to do because I'm a huge Lord of the Rings J.R.R. Tolkien fan. So that's definitely on my bucket list to go visit the Shire.
Also want to do that.
Does that wrap things up for you?
I'm gonna say yes, because we got other topics and I want to get to those too. So
that is true. I'll be quick because I don't have like a ton of stuff I'm playing. Like I'm still working on my review for Need for Speed Unbound. Like we kind of got access to code when everyone did. They sort of tried to stealth release that game instead of giving us anyone any early access.
Uh-oh.
But I'm having fun with it. Like,
Yeah?
it started off a little slow. Like I was real iffy in terms of like just the way the characters were being personified and stuff. Like I like the look of it for sure. But yeah, it seemed really slow to start. But after they kind of let you loose in like their, it's kind of this strategic. Like you have to build up a certain amount of things in order to do a thing, right? Like I don't want to like I guess say too much, but you have a bunch of tasks and a bunch of events that you can go race to, and then you earn money, and then use that money to get your car ready to do the main thing that you want to do. So it's like this kind of cyclical thing that feeds into itself, and the whole while you're like getting into trouble and raising your heat level, and then that adds a multiplier to how much money you can get. But it's a risk versus reward thing, because like if you're caught by the cops with a high enough heat level, whatever money you're getting multiplied like gets lost. So it's, and the thing is, money is hard to come by unless you're actually taking those risks, especially like later on. And like the cops get fierce. Like my son walked into the room while I was trying to get rid of a 4-star rating or whatever, and it turned to 5 while he was in the room watching, and he was like just like cheering me on the whole time, because it was like this kept going. Like it was so hard to get away from them. And when we finally like actually made it back to a safe house and stuff, like he was like cheering. He was like, "Oh, I want to play this game. I want to play this game." So like it got really really fun. Like in like the more intense and the more dialed up everything gets, like it becomes like just this really insane big budget movie race scene or whatever. So like I'm really enjoying that. Like the actual story they're telling, I'm still on the fence about it yet. Like I haven't gotten too deep. There's an interesting setup, but it's also like very very it's very rote. That's too big a word for what I want to say. But it's just you've seen like this sort of thing before. Like it's just very unoriginal, I guess.
Oh, like the Mario trailer. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of us.
Get a little ahead.
Jesse wants to talk about what we're here to talk about.
But overall, like I am enjoying it as a game. Like the Need for Speed games have so much potential. I feel like they can do in terms of like making like a fun race story that I feel like they keep dropping the ball on, and it seems like they're continuing that trend so far. But I don't know, things might turn around a little deeper in. But I'm enjoying myself. In terms of like watching and stuff, I've caught a little bit of that Netflix show Wednesday that everybody's talking about.
I watched that.
My fiance started watching it. I've seen some episodes. It's good. Like it's fun. Like I was never like a huge Addams Family fanboy or whatever. Like I do think that those movies that they made in the 2000s or whenever they came out are like really good. Like they're very funny. Like both of them have a lot of rewatch value. But this is just like a totally different thing. Like it's a new version of the Addams Family. Like it's a new world that they inhabit. Like apparently like supernatural things are like known and established in their world. So like werewolves, vampires, whatever, like that's all real. And Wednesday herself is sort of special, but like not in any way that they reveal right away. So it's like there's a murder mystery going on, and Wednesday is kind of at the center of it. And so she's basically become like a girl detective, which I don't think that was a trait that Wednesday had prior, but like that's essentially her whole character. And then she's kind of a girl detective trying to figure out this whole situation because she's at the center of it. And it's fun, like seeing like a lot of the nostalgia being repurposed and recontextualized in that show. But overall, it's kind of like it seems very childish in a way. Like there's death in it, like it's a Tim Burton joint. So like people are getting like murdered, but it still seems a little juvenile in how stuff is portrayed. But overall, it's fun. So I've not been like watching it. Like I just kind of osmosis through my partner who's watching it. But from what I've seen, like I do think it's pretty enjoyable.
Cool.
But that's pretty much it for me. I've been watching a lot of cartoons, but like I think I want to sit down and write like a little feature on that soonish. But on that note, we'll move on to other cinema dealings. First up, we have Quentin Tarantino, who's in the press He's been in the press for a lot. Like he was doing a bunch of interviews for one reason or another. I'm not sure exactly why, but I kept seeing his name pop up in the headlines. But this latest thing was the one that really like stuck. He essentially said that there's no such thing as movie stars anymore. That Marvel movies essentially have killed the idea of a movie star, and that people don't go to see like Chris Evans in a movie or Chris Hemsworth in a movie or any other Chris in a movie. They instead go to see the character that actor is playing. So like Captain America is the star, Thor is the star, stuff like that. And he goes on further to say that the way Marvel has kind of monopolized like the blockbuster has kind of killed other movies and hurt their chances of success. And we have seen evidence of that in terms of just what kind of does well at box office is like superhero things are usually up there regardless of their quality. And then like all the other stuff like really needs good word of mouth or some other factor to really rise to the top. So I'm just curious, like you guys as movie buffs, folks who've maybe watched Marvel movies, like them, not like them, like how do you feel about the idea that the movie star is dead or that Marvel has a big role or has a lot of the blame in regards to that sentiment?
I mean, I don't agree with Tarantino's assessment.
Okay.
First of all,
I second that. Okay, go ahead, Rachel, but I second.
Also,
Okay.
considering that I know that several times in his career, he actually considered making comic book movies. I know he was a Luke Cage fan. But I honestly think that, how do I put this? I'm kind of wondering what his conception of a movie star is.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look back at like old school Hollywood, this was kind of the thing. People, you had actors who did serious dramatic roles, yes, but they would supplement that with like their, high flying adventure films. I mean, look at, like Humphrey Bogart, for example. But I think that, there were a lot of Marvel is the vehicle for. I understand where he's coming from, that Marvel movies are not built on the appeal of the actors, and they're built on the appeal of like building a shared universe and a larger overall story. I get that, and being in a Marvel movie is not necessarily a one-way ticket to becoming big in Hollywood. For example, it's not necessarily always a good career move. But I mean, I would want to reread his whole statement just to make sure I'm not like taking him from the wrong, how do I put this? I don't want to misunderstand, what could possibly be just a very innocuous sentiment, but I do think that I do understand kind of where he's coming from, but at the same time, I also think maybe he's being a little bit of a sourpuss about it.
I mean, that's the vibe every single director who has made this sort of statement towards Marvel movies has gotten. Like that's kind of the first reaction, it seems like, from the press. It's like, oh, you're just mad about it.
Well,
go cry about it, Martin Scorsese, like stuff like that.
Well, I mean, just reading what he said, he's kind of like talking about how there's not a whole lot of room for it. That there's not much room for anything else, and I kind of understand that as well. It's like that's the sort of like the kind of films that this has so influenced the way we watch movies that I think a lot of people are expecting, even if it doesn't fit the same way, they're expecting that same sort of mold to continue. And I understand, they're expecting, like, for example, a film to play out in a Marvel movie fashion, even if that doesn't serve. I understand that, but I don't know. I mean, there's also the fact that Tarantino said he was going to retire when he's 60. He's almost 60 now, so, could be he's feeling the encroach of entropy just a little bit, but I don't want to ascribe too much personal motivation to him.
I think what's really funny or interesting is these complaints or these comments are coming from like directors that could be debated on the Mount Rushmore of like movie directors. Like, I guess a few years ago, Martin Scorsese had made like as a same like comment about Marvel films or comic book films.
Yeah, I think what he said, and I'm paraphrasing, was that they're akin to like amusement park rides.
Yeah,
like
yeah. So in my head, I'm just kind of thinking you two or those two, Quentin Tarantino and Martin Scorsese, they're household names in their own right. Like if he were to put out a film, like people are gonna go see a Quentin Tarantino film because it's a Quentin Tarantino. Like it's gonna do numbers regardless because of who he is. So I thought it was just really interesting that him being such a talented and renowned director, that he's the one making these comments about like Marvel films and how it's the death of the movie star, when his films are they're always gonna do numbers regardless. Like if in my opinion, because I like Quentin Tarantino films, but like for me, like if a Quentin Tarantino film were to come out and a Marvel film to come out, he's gonna be just as successful in my opinion. But that's just me. But I just thought it was really interesting that a lot of people or a lot of directors that are making these comments are directors like James Cameron. Like a lot of these directors that are making these comments about Marvel films, they're household names already. They're big, I guess, big hitters in Hollywood. I can understand these comments coming from directors that aren't as well known or are just trying to get their foot in the door when it comes to their first production or their first they're not that they're new to Hollywood. But for these people that have been in Hollywood for years, and their track record proves how successful they've been, I just thought it was a little, like Rachel said, a little sour on the sourpuss side. Like you're already a staple in the movie industry, like, but you're kind of just being like a Buzz Killington, in my opinion.
It's curious, like because like you're right, like this is coming from directors who have renown, and like they'll make a movie and a movie will be successful, but is it because their movie won't be as successful as the Marvel movie, and like them as auteur directors and like cinema lovers and whatnot feel like it's not worthy of all the extra attention and revenue that they pull in versus like something that they did? Because I'm pretty sure Quentin Tarantino's never released $1 billion movie.
That's true.
My knowledge, right?
That's true. Yeah.
I just read his full. Well, I read the transcript of what he said, and I mean, looking at the exact wording, I think I understand what he's saying in that, like he inferring that, when people go to see a movie that Chris Evans is in, they're not going to see it because they like Chris Evans. They're going to see it because they like Captain America. And that's who they recognize him as, and not as himself. He doesn't like. I think I see what Tarantino is going for. I still think he's wrong, but also because I really think he is like confusing like what success looks like in the film industry. It's like success is not necessarily these days, I think, like a single actor on a marquee like attracting everybody to see a movie. I don't maybe that's what he means, is that Hollywood has changed enough that is not the only way to put butts in seats in theaters these days. And I think the fact that you can get people to the theater with the studio name, with a film name that invokes a familiar character as opposed to the actual actor. I get what he's saying a little bit, but I also think, again, like that's also, I think, kind of like, I think that underestimates the actors who put in the work in Marvel films as well. And I think a lot of the people who've responded, I think like Simu Liu, he responded saying that, like I would never have been able to become the leader of such a massive film that was so successful if I had only been, the sort of person who, if I had followed the path that Tarantino is talking about. And I kind of see what he's talking about, what he means there. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. I'm not making my point very well, but
you are.
Oh, no,
you are.
Yeah, I understand what you're getting at, because like that was Simu Liu's kind of pushback, was that Marvel movies, more than like a lot of these other people who are talking trash about them, essentially these big prolific directors have done a lot to put like minority faces as the leads of like these big budget movies and whatnot, than say like a Martin Scorsese or even Quentin Tarantino. Like I know he's done some stuff in that regard, but for the most part, like it's kind of same old. And like the people who shine and who are big names from those movies tend to be white people.
Yeah, Black Twitter was lighting him up. Sorry.
Yeah, like Marvel has had, like, for whatever you want to say about Marvel, like Marvel has looked at whatever algorithm that they have to be like, hey, this might hit with certain demographics, and like they've put those sorts of people's they put those demographics in the forefront of their movies, and that's a thing to be applauded. And like you guys are saying, like I think he is wrong in that regard, because like sure, Captain America is a big name, but Captain America also put the name Chris Evans in the mouths of like pretty much everyone in America, because Chris Evans before that was acting, but like he wasn't that well known. And the fact that he shows up everywhere else as, oh, that's Captain America, they still know that that's Chris Evans who played Captain America. And Chris Evans, you know, doing this movie or that movie, like that makes him a movie star. Like, sure, he's not the one selling the movie most of the time, and but I think that's kind of a thing that has changed across the board. Like the age of the movie star died long before Marvel came around. I think like there were like maybe a couple vestiges left, but like even characters who have never participated in Marvel movies, like I think they'll say the same thing. Like it's not like who like anyone here, like name the one actor or actress who, if you hear that they're in a TV show or movie, like you're there day one, like you're paying whatever the entrance price is. Like it's you probably have to think about it a little bit, I think.
And you know, when he said, "Oh, it's they come to see the," oh, of course, like I kind of even want to take it a step further and saying that is kind of like a discredit to just like the comic book writers. Like, you know, I wish obviously it's an adaptation of the comic books, whatever Marvel film you're going to see. So I kind of feel like, you know, to say that it's just the death of movie stars and it's not really like, you know, how Martin Scorsese said it's just the equivalent to an amusement park ride. Like they're telling a story to the comic. So people that are really immersed in like the comic book itself, like I think it's kind of a discredit to like the comic book writers, saying that, you know, their stories,
writing actual stories,
other stories aren't good enough to be put on screen. And that's just my opinion. And then to say like the death of a movie star, like I think Chadwick Boseman is a perfect example of like these actors were like the perfect fits for example, if they had recasted Chadwick Boseman, I can guarantee you probably no one would have gone to see Black Panther.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Like I kind of feel like obviously so
I
still feel like it would have been a very successful movie, but it's like people went to the movie like Black Panther was Chadwick Boseman was Black Panther. Like obviously they were going because it's a comic book, but people went specifically because it was Chadwick Boseman. I know that. I did because I was a huge Chadwick Boseman fan. So I mean, I remember when he was on Lincoln Heights on ABC Family, but that's you know, he was in The Express, he was in 42.
Yeah, he was doing a bunch of biopics before he got
Black Panther. Yeah,
Black Panther role. So like he was kind of on an upward trajectory anyway.
Yes, he was.
And then after the fact, like he continued to kind of just be prolific in all the roles he did until his untimely passing.
So to say that it's the death of a movie star, so like people are going to see specifically, and there was I kind of like skimmed over like his interview. He was talking about like, well, if I was in my 20s, I would have been excited, but I'm 60. Why would I ever want to see like a Marvel film? Well, I'm in my mid 30s. So the whole age thing, I kind of felt like that was
that might have been.
To be fair, I do think that's a big difference though.
Yeah.
I do think that's like a 30-year difference. I think that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's kind of like, oh, I'm sorry. I kind of feel like it's just, I admit, like, obviously, you know, Hollywood's changing, but I kind of feel like he is just being a sourpuss and throwing a temper.
Being an old man, yeah. All these other
throwing a temper tantrum, to be honest, because it used to be, Quentin Tarantino was the young pushing the button director, and you know he was different from. But now you're part of the same. You're part of old Hollywood, quote unquote old Hollywood now. So now you're complaining about stuff that people used to complain about your movies. If I'm making any sense there. So, but I digress.
I just was thinking, you know, I guess one thing that we should probably like that I wanted to talk about is like defining what a movie star is. So like if you go like way back to like the beginning of Hollywood, you know, advertising a film, you would say it as like, watch this new adventure that Cary Grant is in, for example, and it would be about him being in the movie more so than that. And I think Hollywood has sort of, you know, transitioned away from that, but there are still a lot of times where advertising a movie is about like, hey, look, Jason Momoa is in it, for example. And so I think in that respect as well, I don't think that the definition or the purpose of a movie star has changed. I mean, the only difference is that in Marvel films they can afford to cast someone who might not have the name recognition. And because I mean, like, if you think about Thor, Tom Hiddleston and Chris Hemsworth were unknowns before they were in Thor. Now both of them can completely fill theaters just by being in a movie that otherwise would never have been heard of. So, I mean, and same with Chadwick, same with Simu, same with I keep mispronouncing his name. I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry.
They did have to work up to that, to where they could cast kind of unknown people to the masses, because like their earliest movies starred people like Wesley Snipes, starred Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson. Like they put names that you did recognize in those early movies. Like Edward Norton was the Hulk, for example. You know what I mean? Like, so they worked their way there using movie stars in that exact same way. And now that they had the name recognition for the brand, for Marvel, for that class of movie, then they could branch out, which I think is good. Like, you should lead with, you know, the people who can kind of get your platform out to the masses, and then give them the thing you really want to give them, which is new faces, new stories, or whatever. It's like, I support that kind of nonsense.
It's like, I feel like we're working with like a version of that's part of the problem. Is I think Tarantino is working with a definition of movie star that is both outdated and also I don't know if has ever existed. Like, he's talking about the word movie star. I'm not really sure what he means here, because if movie star is just someone who puts butts in seats, yeah, the Marvel actors do that. A lot of them do anyway.
Yeah.
Not all of them. I mean, not all of their careers have taken off. Fair, but you know, there were a lot of them, you know, that is the case.
And maybe it's because it's Marvel that is making them versus like other things, and that's what he's seeing as an issue.
Oh God, if we're talking about big studios making somebody into a movie star, like that is as old as Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I kind of feel like with that, you know, the way that, I guess, concept or theory, for example, one of my least favorite movies, Marvel movies, had one of the biggest Hollywood stars ever, Internals, had Angelina Jolie in it. And that's probably my least favorite Marvel film. Well, no, I take that back. Captain Marvel. Everyone out there, I do not like Captain Marvel. That is my least favorite Marvel. Look, I digress. But my second least favorite Marvel film, The Internals, had Angelina Jolie in it. She is probably one of the most...
Yeah, she's a world...
She's a world-renowned actress. And she was in a Marvel film. Yeah, like, exactly.
Yeah, she's a superhero too.
she's a world-renowned actress, and she was in Internals, and that was my least favorite Marvel film. So, you know, her name, by that, you know, her name should have brought tons of people. I mean, at the time, didn't it come out during like the pandemic, 2020?
Yeah, it was one of those.
Yeah, so like, you know, if that's the case, then why wasn't that one of the highest-grossing Marvel films? She's a world-renowned actress.
Yeah, like times has changed. Like people don't gravitate to just the name anymore. Like there's some cachet there, but honestly, like that doesn't matter anyway, because we'll transition to our next topic.
Oh, I wanted to say something first.
I'm sorry, Jesse.
Go right ahead.
As on the note of Tarantino, I do agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think, you know, it does seem like he's being a bit sour, and he is, like, I guess, popular movies comes in phases. It's kind of been touched on in several different ways, but like there was a time when the musical was the blockbuster. Like, if you wanted to make a blockbuster movie during that period, it had to be a musical, or it was probably an outlier. Westerns were the same thing. They were huge. That's what it was. In the 90s, those like weird 90s dramas that Tarantino was a part of, that was this is what everybody wants right now blockbuster. And like that always changes. Right now, kind of hopefully ending soon, like everything else does, but it is the superhero movie. The super high budget, constant CGI. Sometimes there's a real face in there, superhero movie. Like, and that is and has been for about a decade or so the big thing. And it will probably change. So I feel like that's just a natural part of the cycle of it. And that, yeah, his movies in the 90s were part of that. And touched on this a lot too. Like he was a bit that you were saying, like he was pushing those buttons that got the butts and seats that people wanted to see. That he was the new up and coming director. And yeah, I feel like just maybe when I don't want, like you were saying, Rachel, I don't want to subscribe too much to what his internal thoughts are for this, but like, yeah, it could be that that's what he wants because that's what it used to be, and that's not what it is anymore.
Right.
I do agree on the point that they do want to franchise characters. That totally agree with, because they can have Captain America, and to a point, it does count who Captain America is, but like once they move the mantle on, because Anthony Mackie's going to be the next Captain America, I think.
Yeah, he's currently
Okay.
Captain
Okay,
America.
yeah. So like Chris Evans goes out, they get Anthony Mackie in. If that doesn't work out, they switch actors a little bit sooner than expected, and they still have the name Captain America and everything that comes with that. When, if they don't want to pay Samuel L. Jackson money at some point, time for a timeline where younger Nick Fury comes in.
Fury.
And they write that into the thing, so now we don't have to worry about that money. Or he ages out, or something less sinister than like he said something the mouse didn't like, so we kicked him out. But that's also entirely possible. And when you have franchise characters, that is something you can do. Is ice your actors out when they do something you don't like. A little more on the dystopian side, but it is a possibility. But yeah, I feel like it is a sign of him kind of focusing on when he was big and not having it. I don't know what I'm looking at.
I'm sorry. I just realized that I was like, we're talking about Disney, like the mouse, and I have Mickey Mouse lipstick right here. I went to go reapply my lipstick, and I was like, oh, God damn it, he's everywhere.
He's listening right now.
Sorry, Jesse, go on.
So Rachel is bought by Disney, and that's why
Yeah.
only says good things about
It's like,
Disney.
next thing you know, Sigma's Twitch is like suspended. What? What happened?
Yeah, I think that was the end of my points. So
I'm sorry,
no,
Jesse.
you're good. You are good. I appreciate the.
But
the
no,
input.
very, very
The
well
levity.
Put points.
Can I just say one more thing real quick, then we can move on?
Go right
I just want to say that I feel like part of this, just to defend Tarantino real quick, I think part of the reason that this and like what Martin Scorsese said about Marvel, I have to wonder, these people do interviews all the time. I have to wonder how many times this came up in interviews that prompted this. So like I kind of, because people get asked this, a lot of directors get asked this, like, would you ever direct a Marvel film? That seems to be, at least, I mean, from what I've heard, that's a pretty popular question. So I have to wonder how often they're being asked this. It's like, Quentin, would you direct a Marvel movie? Quentin, would you direct a Marvel movie? And it's like after 50 repetitions of, oh, I don't want to talk about that, or no, that's not a question I'm answering. He finally just says, I wouldn't want to direct a Marvel movie for this reason. Everyone's like, so I can't help but wonder if that's part of it, just to a certain extent.
Now they get their headline.
That's an excellent point, because on the I know you have, Rachel, but if anybody hasn't looked at like behind the scenes stuff for actors and directors, when they're doing a tour for a movie like Quentin Tarantino is now, they will sit them down in a room for 8, 12, whatever hours, and 5-minute increments of reporter comes in, asks a series of questions that they only got 5 minutes, out, next person in. And yeah, a lot of times it's the same question, and they do have to, like, for their own sanity, start either delving into or changing the exact wording of their answers. And like sometimes that makes a bite that someone takes and it runs with, whether it's exactly what they said or just something sort of based on it.
And maybe they were just a little annoyed when they.
Oh yeah,
right, like
irritable. I mean, he's almost 60.
Yeah, like I'm sick of this question, and that's gonna bleed into the answer, even though that wasn't the intent.
I could definitely understand that frustration. Like, you're sitting, like you said, there for hours at a time, and it's like speed interviewing, and you want people to ask questions about your film and your opinions and whatever it may be about. Like, interview me for what I'm on this press tour for, essentially.
Right.
Like,
my movies are up here.
yeah, like ask me questions about, like, you know, what I'm doing Vice. Would you direct a Marvel film? Would you direct a DC film? Like, and you know, the thing about reporters is like, they know he probably has that stance on, like, Marvel films. Like, he's probably just knowing Quentin Tarantino, how he is as a director. Like, are you asking that question because you genuinely want to know, or are you asking that question because you know he's going to give you some super harsh answer?
Yeah.
So
makes sense. But yeah, we will move on to our next topic, which is still related because we're still in the business of movies. We got the full trailer for The Last of Us, a new HBO series based on the Naughty Dog PlayStation video game. I'll just start off by saying I think it looks great, but we also know that it looks like it's following the story from the first game very closely. Like, we're seeing several characters, several situations from that game, and that tends to be the worst way to adapt a video game. However, it does look good as the way the trailer portrays it. Like, we won't know for sure until we see the full series, of course. But I'm curious what you guys feel about that trailer and about that particular game being turned into a series in general.
Funny that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jesse. I'm sorry.
Oh, whatever you're gonna say is probably much more interesting than mine, because I haven't played the game.
I can assure you, it's not.
I haven't played the game. I'm interested in playing the game. I haven't played either of them, and now that I have a PlayStation, I should. But yeah, I think it looks really good, and I am very interested. But to go ahead.
No, I haven't played. Thank you. I feel like this is a safe space now. I have not played the Last of Us games either, but it's funny that we're talking about it because on my Instagram, the trailer just popped up on my Instagram feed. So
it heard you talking about it. So
Disney's watching again. Yeah, I have not played any of the games, but the trailer for the show looks really, really good. But it's kind of like, for me, like when Walking Dead came out, I have not seen one episode of Walking Dead, but I've played the Telltale games and I love the Telltale games. So I guess for Last of Us, it's going to be flipped, where I've never played the game, but now I'm going to be watching the series. So I'm interested. It does look really good, but I'm going solely based off of, probably the same as you, Jesse. I've never played the games before, so I'm going based off of what the trailer is for the series. So I'm going in there with an open mind, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of people that have played the game that are probably going to find some issues with it, as they always do. Whenever you have some type of game to movie or game to, series adaptation.
Checks out. So, how about you, Rachel? You've played through the first game, at least, right?
Oh, I've played both games, and I like what I'm seeing. I'll be honest. I thought it was well. To be fair, this is, out of all the game series in the world, this is one of the ones that that most lends itself to a film adaptation, because that's kind of what it feels like. I also like how one of the problems I had with the original Last of Us was that it was kind of muddy. And that's one of the things I did like about the remake, even though I thought it was pretty unnecessary. But at the same time, it did lighten things up and give it a little bit more, the art style was just a little bit more colorful. And I do like that they've sort of echoed that a little bit in the series. But in terms of like the adaptational nature of it, it does look like they are showing some things that weren't shown in the games. It maybe is a little bit of an expansion. For example, we saw in the trailer that they're actually showing Ellie's mother, who is a character who is mentioned in the games, but never actually shows up. Because there's you know what, I won't spoil. But anyway, there is. I'm looking at it and I'm like, it looks a lot like the games, and that makes me happy. But at the same time, I'm like, looks a lot like the games. I want to go play the games. So. Yeah, that's kind of the feeling. It's like, oh, this looks like such a fun and interesting and faithful adaptation of that. I don't, if it's too close, it might be too close, and where it feels a little redundant.
Right, and that is a worry, but it's a worry for how many of the potential audience? Like that's what I'm curious about. Like HBO reaches, I think, way more potential viewers than the fans of the actual game. Like I know, The Last of Us is a big selling game, one of Sony's staple first party titles, but like it's a Sony first party title, and like that limits drastically how many people can experience that exact thing.
Yeah.
And one of my biggest critiques for The Last of Us was I really love the story, but it's more about that story than it is a game. Like it doesn't really do anything new gameplay wise. Like it's all cinematic. And like and that's a thread that Sony keeps hitting, like with their big exclusives. It's like there's like God of War is probably the one that has the most game in it versus like maybe Ghost of Tsushima, but Ghost of Tsushima is also very middling in my opinion in terms of gameplay. Like its stories are all great, like they look great, but like they really act as very basic like they're all 7s in terms of gameplay. Like if there was no story, it's a very basic video game. So in that instance, it's like, well, yeah, you should extract the story from that because the gameplay wasn't the draw. It was the plot, which is like, far and above like the best thing about it. So yeah, give it a little extra time and attention and shoot it, like you would, a high budget TV series, and you might have something special there. Because like I feel like a lot of these adaptations that stick really close to the plot, or at least do justice to the plot of games, reveal how shallow the writing in games are. Because that's how I felt about Assassin's Creed, that first movie.
Yeah, it hurts, but you're right.
It looked like it had really good trailers because it looked just like the games. The movie looks just like the games, the way it's shot, like the costume design, the machinery, like all that stuff is cool. It makes sense. They used all the beats from the game. It even told an original story. It didn't it used all the beats that you know and love from the games, but it didn't retread them. But it still fell flat. It was like the writing just isn't good. Like this isn't that good of a sci-fi concept or story. Like that's just the end. That's the end of it because they took the gameplay out and left you with literally the story that you have in the game, and it didn't work. So like I'm curious if this can hold up despite it also looking good like the game, seemingly hitting the same story beats as the game. Like great casting for the characters in the game, like both fantastic actors who are going to be playing these two roles. So like I'm very curious like if the writing can carry it in that way, because I think it can. But I really like the story in the Assassin's Creed games, but just didn't as a movie, which is so strange. Like it's so strange.
It's a pacing thing, I think.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Jesse.
Oh, I also think, and I haven't played the first game very much, but I have a friend who absolutely loves it, and we watched the movie together and like had discussion with people afterwards about it, which was really fun. But like it's also, I feel like within the game context, kind of like with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I would say that's the only one I played. I liked the story of it, but kind of what I liked was that it didn't fit a cinematic mold. Like I liked being able to just go around and find something new and talk to a person. They would tell me something and I'd learn a little bit about this thing called the Artemis or whatever that, is allowing me to transport my mind back in time sort of through DNA, whatever. And it's like, oh, that's cool. It's a lot of concepts that you can kind of fill in the gaps of because you have the time and the space and all this different context to try and connect the dots yourself. That makes a fun story for you to experience. It does not make a good story for you to have in a linear fashion, though. So yeah, that would probably be a trash story if they tried to do it as a movie. So I think I know exactly what you mean by that, which is they built a good world and good pieces for you to play with.
For you to have fun playing in, right?
Right, and that how you put those pieces together makes the good story to you.
Yeah, non-linear, like gameplay as a vessel for like different medium, as like a different medium of storytelling. I don't know if it's necessarily something we should praise so much, when games have cinematic stories. It's like, yeah, they look, if it means that, a game perfectly translates into a TV show or a movie, like, is that, I mean, there's nothing wrong. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with a particular game, but I'm saying maybe it's not taking full advantage of the medium. It's like we have, all this, we have the ability to tell stories, with completely different, because where the person viewing it is the protagonist. That's something movies can't really do. And we can tell stories in a non-linear fashion. And because we have all this time, in and all this space in which to tell the story. It's a completely different venue from TV shows and movies, and I'm not sure that the ability to translate one-to-one perfectly from a game to a movie or TV show is necessarily something I want every game to imitate. It's like Last of Us did it well, but it's not something that I think I want a lot of, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Yeah, like I think it's a possible indictment on how much of a game the game is.
Yeah.
Like if you can translate a story that well into another medium, it's almost as if you didn't need it to be a game. Like could have just been a movie. But then we have Uncharted, and it's like, all right, well, like that is very similar, except the gameplay was
It wasn't too bad.
Very spectacle heavy movie copying, and then they tried to copy that into a movie, and it was like, well, this just doesn't feel like anything.
God, the movie was
Like
boring.
it's fine.
Well, and I think Last of Us is maybe a bad example to use because I don't want to spoil it for Jesse and anyone and Kat and anyone else who hasn't seen. But I mean, what happens at the end of the first game? It was something that because I will say, like, all this, like, it's like, oh, this is cinematic. This feels like I'm playing a movie. I'm not sure. And then at the end, where you have to participate in something you may not necessarily agree with,
Right.
like that. It wasn't quite BioShock levels of "Would you kindly," but it was the same. It was the same sort of feeling of like, I really don't want to be doing this, but I have to.
Right.
I think I felt that way. I don't know if y'all have played the Telltale Walking Dead games.
I was thinking the same thing.
The scene, I'm just gonna say it because the game's been out for years. So there's at the very end of the first one with Clementine and Lee, you have to choose between shooting him or letting him turn. That was probably the most gut-wrenching, I don't want to do this, I don't want to have to choose decision I've ever had to make when it came to a game. The first time I had ever felt emotionally attached to a character was Clementine from the Walking Dead game. So as a little girl, she was like 7 or 8 years old at the time. Like, for her to have to lose her parents and then to lose the other father figure in her life, Lee, it was just heart-wrenching. But I made the decision and I shot him. But
What he wanted.
no, yeah. So it's like Rachel, I can definitely. It was just one of those. I don't want to do this, but I know I have to. Like that. When a game can make you feel that way, mission accomplished.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly sure that's going to, like, out of all of The Last of Us, that is the only part that I'm like, I'm not 100% sure that's going to translate so well to film. Like, or that the impact of that, of like having to follow a character down a path you don't want to go down. I'm not sure that's going to feel as gut-wrenching as it did in the game.
Yeah, like there's probably definitely going to be something lost in that section. But I imagine it'll be very similar to how folks kind of felt a disconnect with characters, like in the end of Game of Thrones, for example. It was like, oh, this character I really like and who I support is now going down a road that I don't like and don't support. And rather than feel like this gut-wrenchingness or understanding as to why that character got there, it's more so like, oh, the writers effed this up. They shouldn't have wrote it like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's a different sentiment that emerges because of the fact that you are apart from that decision. Like, because in this example, it's like you're the one who's doing it, so there's no one to blame, even though there is technically, like, they wanted you to do that.
But it's like you're the one who's got to pull the trigger and kill
Right.
Lee.
Yeah, so you actually get to understand why that decision is made. So that's very interesting. But we'll see when that drops in. When's that coming out? January?
Yeah, January.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
I'll be checking that out. Yeah. And finally, we're going to talk about Super Mario Bros. New trailer. We've already seen one trailer from the show, which I did think impressed. Like, it kind of turned my opinion on what I thought that was going to be early on, because I very much dislike Illumination as an animation house. I think they tell bad stories. Like, their animation is fine. Well, I won't say fine. Their animation is great. Like, they actually make really good-looking movies, but their stories are ass. Point blank period.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Pardon me.
Bless you. But from what I can tell in the Mario Bros. Trailers, like, they are matching the high quality look. Like, everyone looks fantastic. All the characters, I really like what they did with their looks. We got a longer look at Peach in this trailer, and honestly, I didn't realize how dead-eyed regular Princess Peach's model is until I saw her with like a lifelike face in this trailer. I'm like, wow, yeah, like Peach was essentially a baby doll with just zero personality traits, and this actually turns her into a character. So like, I was actually very impressed by that. And like, we got our first look at Seth Rogen's Donkey Kong, who has a little bit of a redesign. I think he looks cool as well. Keegan-Michael Key, I think, is the only character on this voice cast who is doing a voice, and he's doing a great job at doing that voice. Everyone else is fine, including Chris Pratt. I don't think he sounds that terrible. He just sounds like a dude. He just sounds like a dude, and everyone else sounds like themselves. So I don't get why Chris Pratt is getting that much blowback.
I
to be
think
honest.
it's not necessarily that he doesn't sound like Mario. It's the fact that it's Chris Pratt. Like, why Chris Pratt?
Because he's just a dude. He's
Like,
a generic.
I understand that, but with such a the godfather of video games, essentially, Super Mario. Like, why Chris Pratt? Like, out of all the people that probably auditioned for that role, and you can't tell me.
I
I'm
don't
really
think anyone auditioned for that role. I think they went and called Chris Pratt and said, "Voice this character." I don't think.
and I kind of want to be like whoever the casting directors are. Like, I really seriously want to ask the question: why Chris Pratt? Like, what about Chris Pratt said he is Super Mario for the first, legit or the first big production of a Super Mario film? Like, why Chris Pratt? Honestly, it was a complete turn off for me. Like, I get it, like, but it's distracting to me. Like, I don't know why. I think like Jack Black is perfect for Bowser. Jack Black is like perfect for Bowser. Like you said,
And he was putting on a voice, to be fair.
Who, Jack Black?
Yeah.
Yeah, for Bowser.
Well, yeah,
A little bit.
He's doing a bit.
But I think like
you can still hear that it's him.
I don't know. I think it looks great, and I like the fact that Luigi is the one in trouble and not Peach. Like,
Yeah, I'm a fan of that too.
yeah, like I think that's really cool. But I don't know. I'm gonna go see it because I love Super Mario. So, but maybe I'll give Mr. Chris Pratt the benefit of the doubt because I was a huge Chris Pratt fan when he was on Parks and Rec. So, I remember he was on Everwood. Do y'all remember that show from the WB Everwood? Nobody? No. No. Oh yeah, that's it.
No, I think I'm confusing that with whatever show was about like the headless horseman.
No, it was a show back
Sleepy
from like the
Hollow?
early. It was like a
Sleepy
a
Hollow,
show
yes,
back
I'm
from like the early
confusing
2000s about like this world-renowned neuroscience guy. He lost his wife, and then he moves his family to like this little place up in like Colorado or whatever. And the main protagonist, he's a piano player, and he falls in love with this posh girl, but her older brother is like this arrogant, super stupid jock, and it's Chris Pratt. It's a movie from like or a show from like the early 2000s. Anyways, I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt, and I'm gonna go see it. So hopefully, trailers can be deceiving. Maybe it's just what they've shown I'm not a fan of, but who knows? I might go and really enjoy it and enjoy Chris Pratt as Super Mario. So
Oh,
that's my spiel.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like, to add a little insight in terms of like why they chose Chris Pratt, and this is gonna kind of go back to Quentin Tarantino thing. It's because he's kind of a movie star. Like that's what Illumination does. If you look at the casting for all their other movies, it is star effing studded. Like, they don't care about the voices; they want recognizable names to show up in the credits.
But
And so
that kind
the
of
whole
shows.
cast is a name you know, and that's all they care about.
But I feel like it backfires on them though. Like
In this instance, for sure, it is backfired.
Like-
folks do not like that pick.
it's like, I understand and it kind of goes against what Tarantino is saying though, because if it's Super Mario, right, that's a household name in video games. Like, everybody knows him. My 82-year-old grandmother knows who Super Mario is. Like, I think it's one of those things. Like, they have afforded to have the main character as someone who was not known? Like, when you have Jack Black and Keegan and who else is in it?
Anya Taylor-Joy.
Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy. Like, you have all these other, superstars or movie stars. Could you all have afforded for the main character to be someone who wasn't as well known? Like,
That's just not in their algorithm. Like,
now I'm starting to understand why you think they're trash. Like, amongst other things. Like now I'm truly starting to understand, Sigma, why you think Illumination is complete trash. Because this is
Like
I think this is one of the reasons why they're complete trash.
like Illumination is an animation house that got into it, and this is all me. They got into it to make money. They saw that Disney, Pixar, and DreamWorks made a lot of money with movies like Toy Story and Shrek, and it was like, we can do that because they probably had a line to very talented CG animators. But the thing is, like, I don't think anyone in their team or office is actually passionate about like animated storytelling. Therefore, you get kind of just weak copycat-esque stories, like Sing, which I did enjoy, but Sing is almost the epitome of like what they do. Is they get a bunch of stars to voice the characters, they get a bunch of stuff that's appealing to kids, anthropomorphic animals, and then they copy pop music. Like they didn't write original songs for those movies. They just copy pop. Like they're just leeching onto what should work, and it does, which is sad. It's kind of algorithmic in that way.
I don't want to like get into a whole. I don't want talking about this trailer to be just Chris Pratt. But so all I'm gonna say about Chris Pratt is like, one, I could see why people are disappointed because he sounds ridiculous in the trailer. It's like, yeah, he's good at doing the whole like sound effects, and him doing the whole like, wahoo, let's go. He's good at doing like tiny like. But if like that bit where like the fish comes up and like latches onto his face, and he's like, get it off. Like that I think that's one of the specific ones that people are like, yeah, he doesn't sound very good. And I think I can tell he's going for a little bit of like a Brooklyn Italian accent, which I'm fine with. There's nothing wrong with that.
That was Super Mario Brothers Super Show
Yeah.
Mario. Like if anyone watched that old half live action, half cartoon show, Mario did not sound like Charles Martinet. He sounded like a very gruff Brooklyn man.
Nothing wrong with that. There are plenty of film actors who make the transition into voice acting very well. Some just struggle with it. I think part of the problem is that of casting Chris Pratt as a in a voice only role is that the stuff that he's been in lately that has been successful. I mean, and we're getting back into the whole movie star discussion for just a minute. I think part of the problem is that all the stuff he's been in that has been super successful has been, like Zero Dark 30 was really good and he was in that, but like the stuff has been things like Guardians of the Galaxy, the Lego Movie, Jurassic Park. Well, those are the main ones I can think of, but yeah, so this like his big stuff has been big, and he has been in it, but I'm not sure. I think some people have made the like correlation into causation kind of thing of like, they're successful because they're Chris Pratt in it, because Chris Pratt's in it. So if we cast Chris Pratt as Mario, people are like,
yeah, that's that algorithm.
Yeah, it's like he was in Passengers, no one like that. He was a voice in Onward. If y'all remember Onward, that Disney movie.
I loved Onward. It did, but I loved Onward. It did.
Well, this isn't a comment on the film's quality, but it's like we had Tom Holland and Chris Pratt in the two lead roles, and the film flopped. So that's my fear, is that they've kind of been sort of like bamboozled into thinking like, oh, Chris Pratt's a huge movie star, he'll put butts in seats, and meanwhile all the butts have been in the seats because the projects he has been in have big name recognition, not necessarily because everyone is a massive Chris Pratt fan.
I agree, and like I love Lego Movie. I thought the way his Chris Pratt fit the role of Emmett in that instance. Like I loved Lego Movie, and I even have a little Emmett keychain on my key. But I love Emmett from Lego Movie. But for Mario, no, I have to agree with Rachel. Like for Mario, it doesn't seem right to me. Like it doesn't seem. I don't think, Super Mario, Chris Pratt. Like no, like I don't like it. Straight up, I just don't like it. There we go. I said it.
And that's fine. That's fine. Like I'm not sitting here saying like I love Chris Pratt and like he was the only possible choice for this. That is not my stance whatsoever. What I do believe though is that there was never gonna be a version of this that made people happy, because the truth is no one was going to have Charles Martinet do this role. That just was never gonna happen.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the thing that folks need, I think, to wake up and understand. Like that's just not what was gonna happen. One, because Charles Martinet has never done a thing at this scale. Like yes, he's been doing voice acting for this extended period of time, but like he's doing like sound bites for a bunch of characters.
And I
Not
never
voicing like a full role.
Yeah, and I've never expected him to be like the actor, the voice actor that voiced him for
A
the
lot of folks
movie.
did. Like that's
And
like,
I
that was a
don't.
complaint.
I mean, he's he's synonymous with Mario. Like he doesn't have to. Like that's the original Mario. So for the movie, I don't necessarily. I never thought. I honestly never even thought about him doing the voice for the film. But I just don't think Chris Pratt was like a good fit in my opinion. So, but I could see. I
Like,
definitely see what you're saying.
You're right. Yeah, like in actuality, he's not. But the thing is, in the reality, I don't think anyone would be a good fit because the thing that people have in their heads is just a thing that just wouldn't work in film. Like they have to make Mario coherent. He has to talk to other characters. He has to emote or whatever. Like if he was like a silent protagonist and only did the sound effects, like people would be like, that's weird because it's a movie and not a game.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's no way to get around the fact that Mario has to sound like something, and that thing he sounds like is not going to sound like anything you remember because Mario doesn't talk. Like Mario, he makes sound bites. Like
It's
like,
almost
I
like
remember in
if-
the N64 game, he would go to sleep and say like spaghetti, and like it's like like he would say spaghetti like while sleeping. It's like that's not a line. Like that's not that's not dialogue. Like, what if he answered everyone?
You should be the voice actor. You should be the voice actor for Mario Sigma. What are you talking about?
That's the thing. Literally anyone could do that. The fact that they're saying Chris Pratt like he messed up the Wahoo and they're like anyone could do that. Anyone can do that. But that's not what they need him for. They need him to talk. And at the very least, he can talk, right? He is an actor.
It'd almost be like if there was like a Zelda full-length film. Like Link doesn't say one
do
day,
they make Link,
and
do they make
every
him silent. They won't.
and
They absolutely
every
won't. They will give him a
Zelda
voice.
game, that man don't say nothing but and his little sound bites when he hits something or when he dies or yep.
And it'll be the same situation. I bet you they get Tom Holland. to voice
Rachel.
him.
Oh God, not
Oh
Tom.
no,
Tom
poor
Holland is more
thing.
likable.
I'm gonna go.
But they're still not gonna like it because Link is not supposed to talk, and even though you need him to talk, no one's gonna be happy about it.
I'm gonna counterpoint because I don't think the problem is that everybody expected it to fit an unachievable dream. Which, to be fair, I'm sure some people did. They were like, cast Martin. I forget his name. Not Scorsese. Martinet. Something Martinet.
Charles Martinet.
Charles Martinet. Thank you.
Or
It's not Martin Martinet.
One or the other.
So like that everybody has that idea in mind. I will say the problem that I know I and other people have with it is that Chris Pratt is going to do the Chris Pratt voice because that's all he does. And that the Chris Pratt voice is not a good fit. I think Charlie Day is an absolute ass in a bad way choice for Luigi because Charlie Day also just does the Charlie Day voice, and
Yeah,
that's a
he just
bad
sounds like
choice.
him.
Yeah, so it's not that those aren't going to fit the bill. It's that those are voices I don't want to listen to, and they only do their own voices. And when they try, like the few things that Chris Pratt tried to do, and that's shown in the trailer that were a little bit pushing his normal voice boundaries, it sounded like him, but doing a bad job.
Yeah, that's fair, but
Can I critique something that is not Chris Pratt related, just to give the man a break?
I got
no,
those.
yeah, go ahead,
those
because
two,
yeah,
but
we
go
are
ahead.
supposed to be talking about the actual trailer more so than
A diatribe to Chris Pratt. My bad.
I started it, I think, but yeah, I mean, just because I don't think he's the only thing that I'm like, I don't know about this movie.
Mhm.
One, and this is gonna probably be an unpopular opinion, I'm not really keen on their take on Peach so far. Mostly because I'm like, okay, so no Peach in this iteration, competent leader, seems to have a plan for how to combat Bowser. Why the fuck does she need Mario again? Like, are we doing another Lucy from Lego Movie where she's obviously competent in all things, but she's stuck with Emmett for some reason? I mean, that worked in the Lego Movie. I'm not like saying that that's a bad
Yeah.
thing, but it's like, are we just doing this whole thing again where we're saddling a competent female character with a schlubby everyman hero because reasons? And
No, I think that's exactly what they're doing. Like that is the plot because that plot has worked before with Lego Movie, and the algorithm told them, "Hey, Lego Movie had this plot. It had Chris Pratt. Go get those things to make this work."
yeah, so I'm a little like, sort of like, I hope we don't stray too far, because I know you're right. Peach was just kind of like like a mannequin of a character, but she just has some personality. She's sweet, she's kind, she's got a little bit
Great
of a fiery
baker.
streak, but she's not like a stern, hard-nosed
Yeah.
badass character. And I
Yeah.
hope they don't
Right.
make
That's
her
Daisy.
that, because Hollywood only knows how to make two
Yeah,
kinds
that's
of
Daisy.
women.
Yeah.
I kind of yeah,
They could have drafted Daisy for that.
Yeah,
Honestly.
if that's
I-
if that's where you wanted to go.
and I
agree
definitely.
with you. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was gonna say I completely agree with you, Rachel. It kind of seems like it's the, but when you really think about it, that's been like the algorithm or the formula for so many things. The idiotic. I don't like, for example, when the fish gets on his face, like that's a prime example. Like, oh, get it off me, or and even in TV shows, the smart, competent wife with the idiotic husband, Family Guy, The Simpsons, Married with Children, all these things. It just seems to be the, I guess, like you said, algorithm or like formula that seems to work. But knowing people, knowing the game, I just hope that that's not the whole film where it's Peach being the dominant. We have to do this. We have to go say Luigi when it's Super Mario. Like, you're competent throughout the games. I hope you're competent to go save your own homeboy. So, like, I hope we don't have to heavily rely on Peach to and change her whole character. Like you said, like to change her whole persona, I guess, as Princess Peach.
Yeah, if you want to make her
Yeah.
like a competent, royal or leader, sure.
Yeah,
but I mean,
absolutely.
Peach is not a hard-nosed bad. She's not like a tough character. She's gentle and kind and sweet, and has she's even nice to Bowser Jr. when she meets him, even though he kidnaps her because
Right.
he thinks she's his mom. But yeah, so
They should have told that story.
that's a whole nother thing there. But yeah, so that's one thing I'm a little concerned about. The other thing I'm concerned about is I don't want this movie to just be just be a series of scenes on a string that are references to different references to different games. Like they already had that in the trailer. It's like, here's the Smash Bros scene, here's the Mario Kart scene. I'm like, wow, you're making references to the most popular games on the planet. Fantastic, good for you. Is there a story
I
here?
don't know if you guys, have been following my diatribe about Illumination, but they don't know how to write a story. So this is what they will do, and that trailer legit solidified that. I was a little more I thought that there's a better chance of this actually telling like a cool story, because the guys who write for the Teen Titans Go are essentially directing, but like they're not the writers though. So like I don't know how much control they have over like what story gets told.
I will say,
But like that trailer like just shows you like just a bunch of popcorn nostalgia hit bait that feels like if they just fill it up with stuff like this, they don't have to actually tell you a good story. So that's my worry.
I will say
Even
one
like-
thing. Oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I'm sorry, Simon. I will say one thing. The one thing that I feel like whoever the writers are, the scene with all like the penguins, I kind of feel like someone who was in that writing room has thrown them over the side on Nintendo 64 and is helping them get their vengeance. I thought it was really cool how they represented like the penguins as these dignified,
that was a nice nod.
dignified, he's a king of the penguins. Attack, we're strong, when we've also often thrown, I don't care whoever's watching, y'all know you threw that penguin over the side in Mario 64.
Yeah, it's kind of a rite of passage.
Jokes
Rite
on
of
you,
passage.
I've never done that. I'm not a sociopath. I've also never played Mario 64, so that's probably why I
There you
never
go.
did.
So I thought that was, like you said, that could be very well one of the, click or watch bait nostalgia, things they put in there. But hopefully they're just doing that to keep like the story under wraps until you can actually see the full film. But
It makes for a good trailer for sure.
going into it, like I'm not trying to be too hopeful. Like, I'm just gonna go in like it's a fun film. It's nostalgic, but I'm not really hoping for too much, because if I am, then I'm gonna be super disappointed if it doesn't meet that. So,
Like what I hope, because that's a lot of what the first trailer did, like with that penguin scene in particular. Like it showed that there is a knowledge of like the stuff that happens in the games and a willingness to play with that stuff rather than either recreate it or kind of just tell some entirely different story within that world. It seems like they kind of know these games and they want to tell you a fun story about that game world. Like, because Mario doesn't make any sense. Like, we all know this, right? Like, there's no actual sensible story. It's a sequence of events that play out over and over again. And if they can somehow turn that sequence of events into a coherent story that explains, or at the very least tries to explain, a lot of just the out there nonsense, I would appreciate that. Like, I think that that's a fun way to do it, because that's what the Sonic movies did. And like, I know they're not the best example to go off of, but they used all the iconography and similar and stuff that you remember from your childhood and told a story that at the very least made sense from beginning to end in terms of its plot. Like, it was like, hey, Sonic is from this place, and then the rings are used for this reason, and he runs fast because of this, and you know what I mean? Like, they gave it a backstory and made it make sense, and then they showed you all the things you wanted to see, which is Sonic going fast. So like, as long as Mario jumps, as long as he gets bigger from eating a mushroom at some point, like I think everyone's gonna be happy. But like, I don't know, like I want a little more. Like give us a bit of that lore. Like, reference the fact that the instruction booklets said that literally everyone in the kingdom was turned into blocks, and like whether or not Mario actually murdered half the kingdom on his way to like make a joke about that. Like, reference that sort of stuff, and that'll get me over the edge.
That might be a little bit too much of a deep cut, a little too much effort on Illumination's part. I don't think they're good.
Yeah, like, that's why I'm hoping the Teen Titans guys had some input, because they're good for exactly that sort of thing. Like, they play in the DC universe, and they play on people's expectations. Like this, like people were so upset at the look of Teen Titans Go because it didn't look like Teen Titans, and they constantly mock fans for that.
I love
Like,
I love Teen Titans Go, but I get it.
Like, that's kind of the chaotic energy I want. Just in the margins of this movie. It doesn't have to be the whole thing, but just put in the margins. I think I'll be satisfied.
Okay. So going away from voice, oh, you about to say something, Rachel?
No, go ahead.
Okay, going away from voice acting, even though Chris Pratt, bad, Peach, Bowser, okay, Toad, short lines, but I think could be fine. They're definitely the most impressive that I heard in the trailer. The thing that got me worried about the trailer is that every bit of the scenes that show up are things that I swear I have seen before, just with a Mario skin on it. So like the joke of like Mario jumps in, hero goes for a big punch, and then bad guy slams him in the ground and punches his face in. Like, okay, it's Mario and Donkey Kong, but like I've literally seen that joke before. The hero goes the fish on the face, literally seen that so many times. Oh, we've seen this hero, and is he gonna make this jump in his car? Oh, and he lands and it skids around and he goes. It's like, cool. It's just Mario and a Mario Kart on Rainbow Road. Like,
you gotta save the world, no pressure.
Right. Like every single, to your point, Casey, of it being an algorithm, it is every point of that was, I have easily seen this several times before, and it's just a Mario skin.
Yeah, now it's Mario though, and it's a pretty skin.
To be fair, it does look gorgeous.
Pretty skin.
It does look good. Looking good does not interest me in a movie, though.
There is a difference, yeah.
Like, yeah, there's plenty of good-looking movies that I have zero interest in watching. Like, sorry, I've done that before. I watched The Mad God because it looked great, and that I almost regret that. Like, there has to be something else there to get me through it.
Don't get me started on Avatar, because I can give you a whole dissertation on that. But
another movie I've never seen, because everything I hear about the movie sounds bad. Why do I care that it looks good?
And it's crazy, because it's like, James Cameron's talking about no one's ever done this, XYZ. It's like your blueprint for Avatar is basically white men colonize, going to a island and, being colonizers. That's literally what Avatar was, the first one. That's literally what it was. How many times has that been done before? So because your movie was one of the first movies to truly push CGI, then that makes it what's the highest grossing film of all time? Yeah, because you released it in theaters like 700 times. Like, it's like it's the same
absolutely massive marketing budget behind it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's just kind of like same thing. Like, I've seen this before. It's just like you said, it has a different skin on it. It has a different face to it.
Yeah, that face is blue.
And
I've never seen that before.
With regards to what Jesse's saying about algorithms, I think what worries me is that it's hard to quantify sometimes, but you can. And I'm thinking about like just saw Godzilla King of the Monsters. Watching that is like you can tell when a film is made with genuine passion for the material. I mean, you can tell there is. You can feel it. You can just feel it when the filmmakers genuinely love, respect, and want to incorporate all of the source material and all that craziness. It's like King of the Monsters got freaking roasted by the critics, but every single person I've talked to who is a fan of the monsters of like big film monsters thinks it's freaking greatest thing since sliced bread. And they love it. They love it so much because they can feel like there's genuine love and passion for this material. There, you can tell the difference between that and I have access to a popular IP and I want to make a movie that's going to make a lot of money because I want to turn this IP's popularity into cash. You can tell when there is a different you can feel the difference between those two kinds of projects. And I think the fear is that the Mario movie is going to be column B and it's going to have more of column B than column A. Focus, camera, come on.
No, that makes so much sense because it's like you would wonder why Nintendo would choose Illumination out of. I'm sure every other animation house also wanted a crack at this. You cannot tell me that DreamWorks or especially Disney Pixar would not have wanted to make this movie. But it's Illumination who probably made the pitch to Nintendo saying like, oh, we'll get you that cash. Like, look at these numbers, Nintendo. And Nintendo was like, you know what? They make a lot of sense to us. Because it's about that money. And they prove it with their numbers because they make trash CG movies, probably for under the budget that the other guys do. And then they reap higher rewards for it because they're following an algorithm.
Well, and also I don't think Nintendo would have wanted to like have like a big corporate face-off with Disney over like the details of everything because Disney does not like relinquishing creative control of stuff. So Disney would have wanted to have more creative control than I think Nintendo would have. They would have like cut Nintendo off the. They would have like stopped taking Nintendo's calls after a little bit. I think. Been like,
Left on
day of
ad,
filming. It's like day of filming. Now we're gonna put the phone on silent.
No, that's a good point too. Yeah, like they definitely don't want any pushback. I'm assuming, and Illumination was probably a lot more accommodating because they don't care about the art.
So, I mean, we haven't seen it yet. It could still be good. We're all really down on it, but I mean,
no, I think it'll be fine.
Yeah,
honestly.
I don't.
So
it'll probably be better than any other Illumination they've made.
Jesse, it won't.
I do not have high expectations. I do not have expectations of it.
Sigma, I'm gonna ask right now. When you do a review on Super Mario on your podcast, I want to be on that one because I'm ready.
Oh sure, absolutely.
Guns loaded. Pew pew.
My friend RBG Blight is doing a review of every video game movie, so that is I am going to watch this movie because as suffering with him, I have seen many a video game movies. So I'm gonna end up watching it.
What's your worst so far?
The worst? Postal, easily.
That you think? Oh, fair, yeah.
Which is outstanding because it is probably Uwe Boll's like most technically competent film. Like there are jokes that have proper timing. There are like you can see people are actually trying. It is just the material is so bad it makes it hurt.
Oh, wow.
Aside from that, oh gosh, Resident Evil Final Chapter, really bad. Actually gave me a headache trying to watch it. Like the editing in that movie is possibly the worst film editing I've ever seen.
Oh.
In a movie of like a substantial budget. Aw, cat. Like I've seen worse editing in like, low budget stuff where someone had like 20 minutes and an old computer, but like for a release thing, it is amazing how many cuts they will put in 10 seconds of footage. Jeez. Like blows my mind.
But okay, I think we've reached the end of today's show. So we'll just go around the line. Rachel, where can people find you? What do you have going on this week that they can check out?
So coming up soon is the Game Awards, and it's a big deal. We're going to be reporting on it over at GamesBeat. I'll probably be live tweeting it. Probably won't be streaming it because I'm going to have to be working while it's going on. But I am probably going to live tweet my reactions to all the trailers, all the Hideo Kojima cameos, all the musical performances, all that fun stuff. So that's the big thing that's happening for me next week, and professionally. And also, I'm going to be continuing on. I had to take a slight hiatus from my Golden Girls, my Stay Golden Sunday posts, and my Masonry Monday posts because I got a little bit burnt out. But I'm trying to bring them back before the end of the year so we can finish the year strong. So you can find everything on my Twitter, which is just my name, and at Rachel Kaiser, and all the stuff goes through Twitter. So all the stuff I do, you'll be able to see it there, and hopefully you can join me for the Game Awards.
Nice. Rexicon, Jesse, how about you? What do you got coming up?
A bunch of stuff on my channel that I'll be streaming, which is twitch.tv/Rexicon Jesse, and then also Jesse Galino over on YouTube. I dual stream on there, and all my VODs are on there. Thank you. I'll be playing games tomorrow and Tuesday in the morning/afternoon Eastern, and then I'll be doing RPG Help Desk on Wednesday, which is always a hoot. I'll have a game coming up, but the embargo isn't for a while, so it'll probably be late this week. And then hopefully I'll be starting a new game review for a game that I really want to play, if we get the code for it. Nice. And that'll be on The Escapist.
Yes, Escapist Magazine. Yokina?
I am actually about to be on another social media hiatus for the next probably 6 months. So, so other than if you ask me to be on any other podcast, which I absolutely love being on here, other than that and being in the Open Party Discord, you can kind of find me on Instagram for now, for the time being. But I'm probably just going to be in the Open Party.
Yeah, so make sure you join that.
Yes, join the Open Party. So other than that, I actually won't be up to much over the next couple months. Like I was telling you, Rachel, I'm studying for some entrance exams, so that's gonna be taking up a lot of my time. Yeah, that's pretty much that's it for me. But if I'm ever on the podcast with Sigma again, that's where you can catch me. You can see what I'm up to.
and she will be on the podcast again. You guys can find me at SigmaGears9 here on Twitch, as well as Twitter. Later today, we'll be doing Super Smash Sunday. Jeff will be joining me as usual over on the Open Party Twitch channel. So make sure you're following that as well if you're not already. Some folks were asking about all the Smash World Tour, Nintendo canceling the tournament news that was coming out over the week. We'll probably dive into that there because I feel like that's probably a more appropriate venue to talk all these Smash deep cuts in terms of news. So if you're interested in that discussion, I'll probably be having that with Jeff over there. But outside of that, I edited a review for our managing editor over at The Escapist, John, who reviewed Crisis Core Final Fantasy Reunion, which is a remake of that PSP game. It actually got me interested in maybe finally getting to play those Final Fantasy remakes, because I know I have the 7 one somewhere, but I think I want to check it out now. That story seems kind of nuts. But that'll probably drop sometime this week. Still working on the Need for Speed Unbound review. Hopefully that'll drop by the end of next week. And the regular string of live streams that I do for The Escapist. With Jesse, we do Hidden Gems. We'll be doing Get Jesse to the Greek on Wednesday as well. No Metal Gear Solid on Thursday because me, Marty, and Nick will be live streaming the Game Awards. So you can follow Rachel's live tweeting there, but then watch our stream at the same time, and you'll get all the information in a nice, nicely tight bow.
Can you put my tweets up on the live stream, just my Twitter,
like a banner at the bottom, like CNN?
Yeah, I'll see Nicoletta's. I don't know if Nick knows how to do that. I think I can figure that out. But I'll ask him if he wants to do that because that's actually pretty funny to me.
I'll be sure to keep it relatively PG.
Don't need to worry about that.
I do have one thing. My PSN is the same as my Instagram, Twitter, everything's the same. So I'll be taking myself off of offline because usually when I play online, I keep it offline. But I'm going to be putting myself, since I'm not going to be on social media, if anyone ever wants to play Red Dead Redemption or Monster Hunter or any of those other things, I'll be online. So you can add me on PSN and we can just hop in the chat. Or if anyone ever wants to play me in Tekken, I'm totally and always up for that.
Oh, man.
So
don't do it to yourself.
so but that yeah, so you can just add me on PSN. It's Yukina Cat, like you see down there, and then I'll be online.
Nice. Make sure to do that. She's a fun person to play games with and
Thank you.
talk to.
Thank you.
All of you guys are.
We'll miss
thanks
you.
so much for joining us once again.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Casey versus Cat at Tekken. Cat wins, like hands down. Like there's not a competition there, guys.
They
but
want
that
to
can do
see
it
you
for
get your
today's
butt
episode.
kicked.
Yeah, they do like that, don't they? Bunch of sickos. But that's gonna do it for today's show. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.